Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be nurtured together. May we be nourished together. May we strive together. May our learning shine. May we not quarrel. Peace. So in session 21, the subject matter was Karma Yoga, and it was a scripture that we were at, and we stopped over here. And all we have to complete chapter 3 is the rest of the remaining text and this page before we go into chapter 5. So knowing that we're still in chapter 3, this session will be about a thorough summary of what Karma Yoga is and why it's important to be practiced as a lifestyle, how to integrate Karma Yoga, and just adding some clarity around it. So the way to do that is I'm going to use mind maps, and I'm going to summarize everything we've done since day one, since walking in here. So we started out with the Bhagavad Gita, and the Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters, and it's a situation between two sides where Arjuna is a seeker of truth, has been caught in a dicey situation where he has to restore Dharma. Dharma is how to live and how to uphold what is good. Now we are always in a somewhat in a position of someone's breaking the law and someone else is preserving the law. This is an endless situation, that is, as long as the world exists. So Arjuna is one of those who are on the side of the good, who has to engage in an action or actions that restore the Dharma, because if he's not going to do it, then who will? So that means that it's not a matter of just saying, well, somebody else is going to fix this, so let them fix the world. And the general phrase goes like this: if it's to be, it's up to me. So that means that we're all here connected through this field called Ishwara. And that means that since all of us are of Ishwara, everyone carries a certain level of responsibility to the world. Also knowing that everyone is also simultaneously a role model for everyone else, right? Because everyone's watching you whether you know about it or not. If you have had kids, you will know what it means to be a father or a mother. They just copy you. So now Arjuna is, as we said, between two sides, having a breakdown, and he recognizes that the situation he's in cannot be solved by himself. It's way too vast, it's too complex, and he comes to a position to say, look, I can't deal with this. I need to move. I want to go away. Someone else needs to fill my position. So this is something that's common somewhat, where we sort of want to delegate it to someone else. But if the irony is, if we choose to delegate it to someone else, then we're actually violating our Swadharma. Because if one person is in a certain situation, let's say you're supposed to be to break up a certain argument, and you say, well, I'm not going to put myself in that position because I'll get into trouble. So that's a violation of Dharma, because if you were in an argument, you would definitely appreciate someone to sort of help you out. Or let's say in a dangerous situation, you would certainly appreciate if someone just came over to help you. So you can see how it's a tricky one, because the person who wants to help is also afraid for their own life. They also have their own vested interests. But at the same time, if they get involved, then they have to fight that natural inclination to back out and not get hurt. But that causes guilt later on. I could have helped them, but I didn't because I didn't have the courage. So you can see why this isn't so easy for Arjuna, because Arjuna knows he should, but he should uphold Dharma by engaging with Duryodhana. But at the same time, he's confused. He doesn't know what is the right course of action. So then Arjuna comes to a position where we all need to come eventually, and it's a position of courage, a maturity, and that is to ask for help. So that means that Arjuna, knowing he couldn't solve the problem by himself of what to do, whether to stay, to uphold the Dharma, or to retreat back, he had to ask for help. So this help is a metaphor, Krishna is a metaphor for that point in life where we finally mature and are able to put our own ego aside and recognize that despite all of the knowledge that we have had and accumulated, it still isn't sufficient to solve the problem of who am I and how to live properly on earth. So that's why Arjuna consults Krishna, who is a symbol of Ishwara, the Lord. So that means Arjuna is directly now resorting to saying, no, nothing helped me, now I need the help, I need the ultimate help. From who? From Krishna, who, as I said, is a symbol of the Lord. So Krishna, what happens is, Krishna advises Arjuna how to deal with the situation, what to do, what not to do, how to progress. And Arjuna really likes what he hears. He's enthusiastic, and he recognizes, wow, so everything's the self. And I want to now go to the forest and contemplate on this knowledge. But Krishna does not allow him to do that, because it's very easy, as you can see in the class, just to listen to self-knowledge. But as soon as there's a live environment on the outside which demands certain situations and our time, effort, and energy, then it's very easy to sort of backtrack and say, well, that's just Mattia. I'm just going to deal with the unchanging and I'm just going to stay there. That is a big mistake in Vedanta, by the way. It's called disassociation. That is disassociating from the world, because after all, it's just all coming and going and there's no value in it. So I'm just going to stick with that which is eternal within me. So Krishna does not allow Arjuna to do that, because it violates the Dharma which is confronting Arjuna, which if performed would cause Arjuna to move forward into a position where he could actually properly comprehend this self-knowledge. So that means, despite Krishna telling him about self-knowledge and saying, ultimately there is no problems here at all, because what you're being confronted with is an eternal progression, a game, an eternal situation of Ishwara. Whether you're alive, this is going to go on. Whether you're not here as a person, this is still going to go on. So there's no point trying to escape, because it needs to be done. And so Krishna advises him that that self-knowledge is the solution, that he is actually the self-existence and not this body which Arjuna thought he was. But what happens is, Arjuna, of course, if you imagine yourself being in his or her place, I mean, you got to deal with a real life situation. And someone's telling you self-knowledge, well, how's that going to play out? Probably not very well, because you're still in a real situation. You got to deal with action, how to confront this. So that means that Arjuna's mind was not prepared, just like that last guy there is not prepared. So, that wasn't conducive for Arjuna's mind, both intellectual and emotional, to fully receive, assimilate, and contemplate the depth of this knowledge that Arjuna is actually the self and not the ever-changing body, emotions, and thoughts. So now, there's one point, if you remember, where Arjuna asks Krishna, I'm confused, he says to Krishna. First of all, you advise me self-knowledge, he says to Krishna. Krishna says to Arjuna. First, you recommend me jnana yoga, knowledge yoga. And now, you're saying I should do karma yoga. And then Arjuna says to Krishna, which one should I do? Because they both lead to liberation, but which one should I do? Which one should I take up? And Krishna responds to Arjuna and says, they are both paths to liberation. It depends on the predisposition of the person. For some of us, knowledge works instantaneously because we're already primed. Our minds are already sufficiently clear. Our emotional and intellectual minds are already primed to receive the self-knowledge. Some of us, that is not the case still. So for those, we need karma yoga, which is both of them are means to liberation, except Jnana Yoga is the fast track. Because Jnana Yoga knowledge is pointing directly to that which I am. Whereas if one doesn't get that, then saying I am that, I am the unchanging, and they're trying to comprehend that, then we say, that's fine, there's no problem, we got Karma Yoga for you. So now we come to the topic of what exactly is Karma Yoga. We already mentioned this several times. This time I want to put it in a light of pragmatism. And karma means action, okay? It just means simple action. And yoga means spiritual, in the context of karma yoga, spiritual sadhana, spiritual practice. Now, if you think about it, you're always acting, right? You're always doing something. Walking, gardening, you are, let's say, taking the trash out, cleaning your teeth, taking your clothes off, you're turning on the heater, you're writing something, you're listening, you're having a shower. So that means there is no time where you're not acting. We can all conclude that firmly. So then the question comes up, what if I could turn my actions into a sadhana, into a spiritual practice? Whereas every action actually points me to Ishwara, causes me to turn my mind inwards and contemplate that what I'm dealing with is actually Ishwara's creation. Because think about if I don't do that, and I just do my actions the usual way, what's going to happen? Nothing. You're going to get your actions done, right? You're going to fill in your report, you're going to say hello to people, that's it. But what if you do that plus there is a benefit, and that causes you to turn that ordinary mundane action into spiritual sadhana? So that's the point of karma yoga. It's for normal, ordinary, working people engaged in normal, ordinary, down-to-earth situations. Okay? So now, in karma yoga, there is a certain assumption that we start with. And that assumption is that as a person, we believe that our likes and dislikes are in fact real. So what does that mean? That means that we give value to what we like and dislike. Think about it, objects are value neutral. But a human being, because of his or her likes and dislikes, assigns a certain value onto an object which inherently, by its nature, is neutral. Because if you think about it, one person may assign value to a Rolex watch, but another person, let's say a hippie, sees that as just another McDonald's watch or some kind of a toy. So, or another, let's say a man assigns looks at a youthful flesh of a woman and assigns a certain meaning to what that means. And then the body has a certain response based on what? Likes and dislikes. So that means that person is value neutral. And then the likes and dislikes assign a certain value onto the object, which does what? So what you say, right? The issue with this is it causes the person to invest more time with things that they like and less time with those things that they don't like. So that means now, what if the things that I like are not necessarily conducive to my growth? And usually they're not, because a human being by nature wants to enjoy themselves, be on the beach, travel, just have a good time. Tell me, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But tell me, is that conducive for inwards contemplation? Yeah. So you can start to see how likes and dislikes, which we learn very early on in our childhood, start to dominate the way we operate in life and to whom we communicate and not communicate. What kind of knowledge we want to be exposed to and what kind of knowledge we want to deny. And that alone sabotages our success to moving forward. So what does that mean? The conclusion is we have to address these likes and dislikes. Why? Because then they're going to keep operating as they always do, and they're going to keep moving me away from what I really need to attend, that is my Swadharma, in order, by its doing, I need to move on. You see?
So that's addressing the Vastness, the tendencies.
That's right. And so karma yoga is a means, a vehicle for addressing those tendencies. So let's now investigate how.
Can I just ask one question? So you've covered the knowledge yoga and the karma yoga. Does bhakti yoga have a place in that?
Bhakti yoga is actually karma yoga.
Oh, so
It's just also because Bhakti yoga is devotion. And devotion to, I'm offering to Ishwara. But so is karma yoga. So they're actually entwined together. Yeah, actually there's a little bit, there's a distinction, but at this point we can just put them together, just for simplifications. Okay, so now to explain karma yoga, I want first put it into three parts. See, in order to see the vision of oneness, I said in the last session, there is no skipping. That means skipping what? Skipping Mattia. So now the question is, how do I put myself in a position that I don't skip Mattia? How do I actually not neglect what needs to be addressed? Well, the way to do that is by understanding that cause which operates the entire creation, which is Ishwara. That's what Ishwara means. It's a cause. It's that cause which moves the law creator, the karma, that force, that power, which puts all of these, puts your body together to work as a human being, which puts, let's say, two hydrogen particles, atoms of a water, and one atom of oxygen, H2O, and makes water. Who does that? Some kind of an intelligence. So that's what we mean by Ishwara is the cause which causes everything you see around you, including your very eyes, which are now used to input the light and process and make image, and your brain to make sense of this room that you're looking at right now. You didn't create any of this, did you? So that means we have to start looking at Ishwara as that creator which causes and makes everything possible. Now, the other aspect of karma yoga is, which we will get to, releasing our fruits of our actions to Ishwara. Now, in order to do that, we have to first see how Ishwara operates. Now, here's a little question. Let's say that we're now in a, give me a sport. Soccer. Okay, we're in a soccer stadium. And let's say this side of the room wants side A to win, and that side of the room wants side B to win. Now, and we both pray to Ishwara, please make my side win. You guys are also praying, make my side win. Now, how is Ishwara considering Ishwara is the total, how is Ishwara supposed to choose which side wins? Because if this side wins, then that presupposes Ishwara loves you less. If that side wins, that presupposes we're less important than that side. So it makes you question, how is this cause, this macrocosmic cause, supposed to operate when there are 7 billion requests at every millisecond that are asking for something that someone else doesn't want? I want peace, you want chaos. I want joy, you want novelty. I want love, you want war. What's the difference? How is my request for love any better or more special than let's say somebody else's request to insult and criticize others because they get a thrill out of it? See, it's only a Jeeva that starts to assign certain like what does this mean? But on an Ishwara, it doesn't work like that. Ishwara, it's a value neutral. It's a value neutral operation. So how is now Ishwara supposed to choose which side wins? The answer is according to the needs of the total. So if you think about it, the needs of the total, not just Earth, but I'm talking the entire creation, is so complex that it is impossible to fathom by our small minds. But we can at least, try to investigate how this particular cause makes all of this happen. And we'll just split it into two parts. One, your own causal body, which causes you to do the things that you do. Okay? We're talking about the causal body now. The causal body is that body in you that causes you to eventually perform certain actions when the time is right. Because the causal body has karma, and karma means results that are yet to fructify. Okay, so that means that let's say one day you feel normal, and then the next day you just feel like taking a holiday. Now, where did that come from? Why did that idea just come there? Where did it come from? Now, you think that's an accident, right? It's not. That comes from the causal body. Or let's say one day you're into one particular practice, and then the next day suddenly you just have this feeling to look into alternative practices, into alternative means. Where did that come from? That's your causal body. There's a whole series, unseen in the past, of series of actions which you have done, which have taken time to fructify in order for today for it to come to a position where suddenly I want to do something different. And that past which has led you, we do not know what that past is, because it's so hard to trace these circumstances which have led us to where we are today. Yeah, you see, so for example, you remember the example when I dropped the pen by accident, and it wasn't my intention, but it dropped on the floor, and then suddenly everyone looked, and then there was all these series of, so that was a cause, there was all these series of effects. Everyone was looking, making comments and smiling. So that wasn't my intention at all, but the results of what happened were totally out of my control. You see, now those results is what we call the collective cause, the collective Ishwara. Because I didn't tell exactly who's going to laugh and who's going to contemplate what this means and who's going to just not say anything. You just had your own response by your own natures, right? But nobody, so that is called the collective. Now, the other thing we have to know about karma is there is a personal karma, okay, that causes you as a person to do the things that you do in life. And there's also individual karma. Individual karma is, let's say for example, collective karma. Let's say for example, a group of people are born in a country with high bomb rates. There's a lot of violence. Now, what is that? Where does that come from? Because there is, let's say, 2,000 people in a city that's very dangerous. What is that? That's called collective karma. So not only do you have your own personal karma, your own stuff to play out, but also you find yourself in a collective position. Another example is, let's say those who are born in Delhi, in India, which is it's a reasonably polluted place. And so that means every person in Delhi is exposed to air pollution. Because so that means everyone who's born in Delhi has their own collective, it's a collective karma. Everyone's born in Delhi. They're all exposed to the same condition. On top of that, there is personal karma. And personal karma means that someone is going to experience less severity of that air pollution than someone else. So what does that mean? That means that someone can be in a car and they're having air conditioning, so they get a nice air. But someone else's karma is to not have a car and just be walking on the street. So two people in the same collective environment, but exposed at a different level according to the severity of the collective. So you can see how complex these causes which connect people and cause not only your own individual karmas based on the circumstances you've done, but also it's now entwined with the collective. Yeah, which is why you're born in a certain ethnic group, with certain parents, with certain neighborhood, all based on what these both your personal karma and the collective karma. Okay. So now, knowing that Ishwara operates on the needs of the total, okay, we can start to see that the fruits of our actions, that means the things that we do, right? There's a result. Every time you do something, there's a result. Okay, so if I say hello to you, I don't know how you're going to respond back. So that means I've applied an action, but the reaction, that is out of my control. Okay? So that knowing now that Ishwara is this macrocosmic cause, it stands to reason that it is not wise to try to put responsibility into what happens, knowing that it's totally out of my control. Because what causes anxiety, if you think about it, and stress in life? Worrying about how things are going to turn out, which is totally out of your control. Because now we know there's so many circumstances which cause different people to have different responses, and that is totally not in your favor. So that means the only thing we can do is just do the best that we can with the action and resources that we have. But what we get back, that is totally not in your control. Okay. So now, what is Ishwara? We can't see Ishwara. We can't see the Lord. Why? Because it's not an object. So but we can see the effects of Ishwara. The world, everything. So that means that Ishwara is the knowledge and power which causes everything you see around you. And everything you see around you is the effect of the cause being Ishwara, of people, of the world, of planets, of laws, of gravity. You didn't create gravity, did you? You created nothing. So that means that Ishwara is all knowledge and all power, and the objects that you see, the effects of that all knowledge and all power, is what comes out of Ishwara. It's by which is sustained by Ishwara, and it's onto which goes back into Ishwara. What do I mean by that? I said Ishwara you cannot see. You cannot see God. You cannot see the Lord. This is where science has a problem. So now let's investigate this. What do I mean by it's that from which objects come? A simple example.
Potential.
Yeah, potential. Now, a simple example, you have this from the Chandogya Upanishad. Let's say I ask you to find me a seed, a mango seed. A mango seed. And bring it. And I ask you to open it. And I say, what's there? What do you say? Well, you open it, you grind it, right? You grind the seed, and what's there? You say what? Nothing. Just powder. Okay, there's nothing in a mango seed. Is that true? If there is, okay, so then why, okay, then if there's nothing in a mango seed, why does a mango tree grow out of a mango seed? So that means just because you cannot see the mango tree inside a seed, it doesn't mean there's nothing there. That's what you said, Mark. It's a potential. It's in potential. That's why you cannot see Ishwara. It's a constant potential being collapsed. It's a constant potential being manifested. Just like the cause of that mango tree is the seed, and in which you cannot find anything, and then what? The science is going to conclude, well, there's no creator, there's no Lord. But does that mean that there's nothing? It doesn't, because it's in potential. If you put that seed inside the ground, it's going to grow into a mango tree. Objects are that by which is sustained by Ishwara, or Ishwara sustains the objects. What does that mean? So that tree now grows into a full mature tree, and what sustains it? Water, which is also what? Not created by you, is it? It's created by Ishwara. So Ishwara's creation sustains Ishwara's creation. Just like food, Ishwara's creation sustains Ishwara in a form of body. And Ishwara is that onto which the objects come back into. What does that mean? How do you prove this? That objects come back into Ishwara? Simple example. We have from the Chandogya. Hey, Michael, would you mind if you turn that off? It's getting hotter here. Simple example is that we have, let's say I ask you to bring me a glass of water and salt. And I say, please put the salt in the water. And you do. And I say, the next day, please give me the salt. What are you going to say?
Evaporate the water first.
You're being smart now. You're not going to find the salt, are you? What happened to the salt? It dissolved in the water. Now, if I ask you, okay, drink the water from the top, is it going to be salty?
Yeah.
Drink it from the middle. Salty? Drink it from the bottom. Salty? That means it's everywhere. Just like the object which goes back into consciousness is everywhere. There's nothing that is somewhere else. There is no second existence where it's sort of parked. It's everywhere. It's in unmanifest. Okay, so now the needs of the total is how Ishwara operates. We're all clear on that. Because the field is far too complex and everyone has a certain need of their own in order to be fulfilled. Now that need can only be fulfilled according to the situation which would be of the highest and greatest good for the total. That's the only way Ishwara can operate. Otherwise, if I say to you, you know what, I want the sun all for myself. Okay, I'm going to get it. No problem. But then what about others? What about all the solar panels which conserve energy, not having to dig the coals in the ground? What about all the other people who need the sun? So that means if I just say I need this for me, then somebody else pays the price. So this kind of thinking is incorrect. That's where karma yoga attitude comes, which is now what we're going to get onto. The attitude of karma yoga is, first of all, knowing that and understanding that Ishwara is this macrocosmic cause. It stands to reason that I need to surrender my actions, the results of my actions onto that field which causes everything. Because the field is way too complex for me to expect something occurring exactly as I would have it be. And the attitude that comes from this is knowing that everything is Ishwara, that Ishwara has provided for me from day one. There is a sense of thankfulness, gratitude, because even your ability to listen now depends on what? Instruments which you didn't create, your ears and your brain. So that means that Ishwara has even given the body those faculties which, because of their use, based on your free will, of course, based on where you expose your senses to, because of their use, is going to lead one to the highest purpose, which is the absolute clarity of the unchanging I. So that's why we have this attitude in karma yoga that whatever happens, it's good, whether it's good or bad. You see? Because sometimes what happens that's seemingly not nice or seemingly negative, it actually turns out to be the greatest chapter, the greatest initiator, the greatest catalyst much later. It just takes some patience to see that. Okay, so now I want to ask you a question. If knowing now that we did not create anything, okay, put it this way. Before birth, before you were born, did you at some place on earth or outside of earth, wherever it is, cobble up earth? Did you create the earth? What about the sun? What about the smell of the flower, the actual scent? What about 10 million different scents combinations that give you that distinct flavor of the scent? What about the color of the hair? What about the fact that the earth revolves around the sun every 24 hours? What about seasons? Did you create any of that? Did you create, in that special lab, emotions? Let's say emotions of just, lightness and contentment, satisfaction. Did you create that? Did you create, let's say, how long your nails will grow? No. Did you create, let's say, the fact that you have 5 toes and not 6 toes? Nothing. So tell me, what did you create here? So now, if we didn't create anything, then how does it make sense to try to own responsibility for everything? Because that's what human beings do. We're constantly worried about things which we didn't create. No matter what thing that is, an object, whether it's a person, career, money, health. Did you create the concept of health, of feeling healthy, or being healthy? So then why do we spend so much time trying to accumulate and own and take responsibility for all of these things which we didn't create in the first place? If you did create all of this, then it stands to reason that yes, you should be responsible. You should, clean up the world. You should, just fix everything. But knowing that you didn't even create your own doubts, your own thoughts right now, did you create those thoughts? No, those thoughts are just going through your awareness and you're aware of those thoughts, but you didn't create the actual thought in itself. And what does a thought actually contain? An object. Of what?
Excuse me, when you're saying, did you create anything, the you that you're talking about is the jiva, is it? It's not the real self that you're talking about.
Yeah, self also doesn't create. Ishwara creates.
The point of this teaching is to
live a life.
For living a life, for a jiva. It's not for this contemplating.
We're not doing we're just doing how to live as a person, as a sincere person involved with normal problems, down to earth situations with normal people.
I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're referring to the causal body and the subtle body.
Yeah.
Anything below the line of.
Yeah. We're not talking about awareness now. We're talking as a normal person now. Yeah. Okay. Is that clear? Okay, because that's what karma yoga is. Okay, so now knowing that we didn't create anything, what do? We invest certain time and effort into trying to make things work. Make what work? Make things work which we didn't create. So I'm not saying that let's ignore, now that it's all just done by Ishwara, let's just let it be to itself. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the attitude is it's all created by Ishwara. And it stands to reason that now there is not so much anxiety to try to make things work, knowing that those things which I'm anxious about, they belong to Ishwara. Because what are you anxious about other than objects, which you didn't create? The attitude is, of course, I'm not doing this for myself. That's the opposite of karma yoga, where it's profit, where it's self-profit, self-gratification, glorification. I am actually doing this for that cause from which not only the doer is coming from, but also is sustained by the doer, the person, because it's sustained by what? Food, which you didn't create, air, which you didn't create, all of the electrical impulses, which you're not doing, the blood pumping, the heart keeping the body alive, which you're not doing. Who is doing that? The cause, which is causing all of these processes to work in the world, both on the microcosmic and the macrocosmic scale. Okay. After this attitude is understood, now we can talk about action. Because if you think about it, attitude is what drives your action. If you got the right attitude, automatically your action is corrected. So now where does attitude come from? From the thoughts. Now, what are the thoughts modified by? The causal body, the tendencies, the vasanas, because the tendencies cause the thought to think in a certain way. Let's say I have a tendency to think about gambling. What's going to happen? I'm going to take the intellect is going to be used to entertain thoughts about gambling. And then what's going to happen? Then the thought is going to send that signal into the 5 organs of action. In this case, let's say the mouth, the hands, and the feet, and go to a gambling house and gamble. So that means that when we correct the attitude, then automatically our action is in line with this understanding that everything is caused by Ishwara, and anything that I do is returned back, but it's returned back from a point of view of unlimited variables, just so many variables which we do not control. For example, let's say a wave, crashes onto the ocean. And then what happens? Like the wave is you. It crashes onto the ocean. Let's say crashing is the action. What happens around? So many ripples get generated, right? From the action. And those ripples are all what? They're all affecting every other wave around. And that every other wave is now affected by your ripple, which is going to cause that other wave to think differently, which is going to cause an action of that wave to be different, which is going to have a different effect. So you can see the complexity of this entire big causal body.
Even just thinking about that gambling analogy that you came up with there, if you're going in with an attitude to a gambling situation whereby someone's created a chance win, but the aggregation of all the inputs that people are putting in is going to go to a beneficial purpose.
Yeah.
So you're basically getting people to contribute, which everybody knows they're doing, and just doing it with the intent that they're going to help in a big way. And then the small benefit that's going to go to one person by chance, which is the gamble, is a different attitude to.
It's an intent, yeah. So see, once again, as long as that intent is not, as I said, for self-profit, but it's for contribution, it's giving, then that exhausts the Vastness, that exhausts the tendencies. As long as that tendency or that action is in line with, as long as that action is in line with selfishness, that means how can I profit, that's going to accumulate more karma, which takes longer to exhaust. Because now I'm going to think in next time in favor of my own self-profit, which is going to put me in certain situations which I have to deal with. Let's say I'm going to experience what? Guilt, because now I know that I shouldn't be doing this. I am, secretly behind closed doors gambling, and it's not right. So that means we cannot cheat Ishwara, because this Dharma field of what is right, it's built into everyone. So that's why if we violate something, we instantly know that we should not be doing that. It's built in, it's a program. Yeah, so if we're not, okay, so now since Ishwara is serving the total, that now we have to ask how to live a life then? Just copy Ishwara. If Ishwara's job is to serve the total, then living a life of serving the total means what? I'm in line with Ishwara. I'm aligned with Ishwara's laws. If I'm serving just myself and Ishwara, the great cause, is serving the total, that's out of alignment. And what happens? I suffer. One example of this, let's say that all of us are now in orchestra and we all have different instruments. I've got the guitar, Shinyi is the flute woman, the lute, Lloyd is the drummer. So we all have a different instrument, okay? Now let's say we all come into the orchestra of life and we all start to play very well. We do what's dharmic, what's right. We all play together. And then let's say one person has a certain like to play their own stuff, their own music. And they do. What happens to everyone else? We recognize that something's off here. Something's out of alignment. In other words, the person with their own likes and dislikes comes out of alignment with the whole. And what happens then? The whole responds in such a way that they cause the person to question themselves. And not only that, but the person who went out of alignment experiences judgment. So see how that instant feedback system comes as soon as we're out of alignment of Ishwara, of not serving the whole? Yeah. That's what we say, that the macrocosm, the whole, and the microcosm are exactly identical. If Ishwara is serving the total, then if the person is out of alignment with serving the total, that's going to produce suffering, which is going to accumulate karma, which is then going to cause me to further engage, getting enmeshed and entangled in worldly situations, which are not going to be conducive to the growth of a quiet, pure, sattvic mind, which is needed for discrimination of the real from the unreal. That's the basis of Vedanta.
It gets complex though, doesn't it? Because, I mean, corporations, the way they behave, very much a group dynamic.
Yeah.
And, from my observation would be that they don't operate for the greater good. But then that's my observation. It gets very hard to discern, what is actually going on. Yeah. I've been in meetings when there's been sort of a lot of unethical things going on, and I'm just silently going, this is wrong, but if I step back now and look at it, I go, how can I determine that? So it's really complex, particularly if you're prone to looking at just society conventionally and the way it operates. you look at governments and you look at individuals,
social system,
and then you
system.
go, you're already with your judgments, particularly morally, about what's going on. But then if you put this overlay over it,
because see, but now this is where you, as an individual, despite being in a collective karma where there's an unethical situation going on, there's still an individual who has of their own accord, their own free will to say, well, this is wrong. Now, see, this is where the problem comes. There's always that, because now if I come out of this situation and I stand up to an unethical behavior, then I lose the job. And I don't want that. But if I continue the unethical behavior, I continue the job, but I'm doing something wrong. So what should I do? See, that's yeah. So that's exactly the situation that Arjuna is in. That it's not so easy to make a decision, but eventually you're gonna have to start to tilt towards the basis or in line with Ishwara, serving the total, doing what's right. Yeah, I know, because see, that means that life itself is going to start to change. Because eventually this knowledge becomes so clear that it becomes so hard to do something that's wrong, nearly impossible, because it's almost like knives. The more tamas in the mind, the more the mind's clouded. Very easy to do evil, very easy to cheat, to lie, to steal. But the more the mind purifies, the more that original consciousness is reflected onto the mind, and original consciousness is but purity. It's that which is inherently good. It belongs to, of course, Ishwara. Consciousness is not good or bad, but Ishwara is just pure sattva. It's pure goodness.
It becomes what we call intuition, I suppose.
Yeah, and that becomes, once you actually get that knowledge becomes feeling, which becomes courage to stand up and recognise and have clarity and actually turn a situation around.
Just like Gandhi, for example, he was in the same situation. I think it was at the ocean and he wanted to get some salt. I think that's his story. And he was told he couldn't because the British didn't allow him to. And he said, well, this is not fair because, you're taking our salt from our waters and you're selling it to us at 10 times the price. I think that was Gandhi. I may be incorrect. But anyway, he started a revolution just by not willing to participate with what is adharmic, what is not in line with Dharma. He stood up and look at the revolution that he created. So that means eventually someone has to stand up. And the more this knowledge becomes firmly established, the more you're not going to put up with what is clearly not the right thing. The more you're going to have that courage to say something. Because if you don't, you're going to feel bad. And nobody wants to feel bad. And it's going to feel so bad that I have no choice but to say something. All right, so now the benefits, of course, of thinking like this, that everything is a cause of Ishwara, and whatever effect I put out there, it causes ripples, which cause the ripples to affect the entire field. That's why I say this knowledge of right action and right attitude results in two parts. One of them is having a relaxed predisposition, knowing now that you did not create the things that you're anxious about. You did not create all of these things like money and health and the body and beauty and age and all of that. It's provided by Ishwara. So knowing that I didn't create it, we can now relax. But amongst with that, we also now know that every action we do produces a ripple in the entire field. That means today, right now, this whole world is nothing but the totality of the constant causes performed by the jivas, which are creating effects and causing the world as it is in this position that it is. So that means that everyone who is acting, and you're never not acting, is producing or adding to this karma field of the total. The question is, how do I want to act? In line with Ishwara, serve the total, or in line with my own greedy, selfish, small, insecure thoughts? It's up to you. If I go the first one, in line with Ishwara, serve the total, how can everyone profit? That's going to exhaust the vasanas, it's going to purify the mind, and it's going to bring closer one in alignment with Ishwara, thinking in line with the whole, and therefore more love, more joy starts to get expressed automatically. If I think by myself, how can I gain? Guess what? That's scarcity. So I'm going to presupposing I'm separate from everyone else. Yeah. And then I'm just burying myself deeper into this hole until it gets so painful one day that Ishwara eventually forces you to come out of the darkness back into the light. So it's better to do something earlier than later, because Ishwara one can easily get away with cheating, easy, no problem. But one day the cheating gets so much that the person, something happens, some situation, he gets found or she gets found, and now it's so bad that now they have a huge glazing fire to put out. So it's much easier to put out the fire while it's still small, isn't it? Then
you got to be aware of it first.
That's right. And how are you aware of it? By being educated as to what is the right way to live, which is what we're here for. So that means if I'm selfish, I'm walking away, but the fire is going to keep increasing more and more and more. And one day I'm going to have to attend that fire. You know why? Because the more the fire burns, the more smog gets everywhere. And even if I try to escape, the smog starts to reach. Eventually I cannot breathe. I cannot live with this constant dirt, this constant unpolluted turmoil. That means one needs to put out the fire as soon as possible. How? Right action in line with the total. Also right action through contributing, giving more, taking less, giving more what you have. Everyone's got a smile. Everyone's got something that you're good at. Caring for the environment. How? Give me an example of caring for the environment.
First of all, not doing anything that would have a negative impact on the environment yourself.
Yeah.
As a first step.
Yeah, caring for, let's say, flushing the toilet less, or give me an example of caring for the environment. Recycling.
Yeah, if you see a bit of rubbish that's going to blow around in the wind, and you see a bin, pick it up, put it in the bin.
Yeah, because see, everything is Ishwara. The earth is Ishwara too, and it's only because the earth is alive and well that it's causing you to have your presence here on earth, that you can learn this knowledge. Other example is inner growth actions. That means actions which facilitate or nurture one's mind to think positively or in the light of the knowledge of the whole. How to do that? Through Vedanta, through your own prayer. Prayer is a very powerful one. Worship. In fact, here's a nice example of karma yoga in action before eating. We usually what? Just eat, right? Food, we eat. What about converting that as a reminder that everything here is Ishwara? There's a nice prayer from the Gita. It goes, Brahmar Parnam Brahma Havihi Brahma Gno Brahmana Hutam Brahme Vate Vagantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. It's a very beautiful meaning. It says, the means of offering, that means the food, is Brahman. The food is Brahman. The oblation is Brahman, the one who is brought the food. The digestive, the eater of the food is Brahman, who offers this food, which is Brahman, into the digestive fire, which is also Brahman. He or she alone who thinks of Brahman becomes Brahman. You see, so we're using something as simple as eating to remind ourselves that not only this food, which is here to support this person, to think and to contemplate, so that what? That means that he or she who constantly contemplates on everything is the Lord, everything is Ishwara, quote, directly sees the vision of that as constant knowledge. That's karma yoga in action.
There's a background to your being.
Yeah, it's constantly present. It's just everywhere. Why? Through simple actions like that. Prayer before eating. Prayer. If let's say you're tired and you fall asleep and you want more energy, why not prayer for Ishwara? Because Ishwara is the cause which gives you those things which you need. So why not just pray, say, Ishwara, I need more energy, please. Please help me. Pull me to the right person, to the right resource, to the right foods which will supply me the energy. What about a memory that doesn't hold this information? Why not ask Ishwara? Ishwara, please provide me a memory that I can hold all of this knowledge together and make and integrate into my life so that it's my daily experience. It's a normal thing. that I breathe it, that I embody it, that I live it? What about, what about, not for objects though, okay? Because objects, you cannot pray for objects. You know why? What did we say earlier on?
The needs of the whole is...
That's right, very good. Because the object is out of your control. You see, let's say there's two men and they want the same lady. Who's going to get, right? How is Ishwara supposed to choose which man gets the lady?
I think the lady chooses.
We can go so many ways with this, right? According to the needs of... So if one man gets... he can manipulate, right? And he's going to get her. But what's going to happen is she's going to fall for it. But then the togetherness of the man and the woman is going to create a situation which is a lot less helpful for the community, for the world, than if the other man got the lady, which then they would have come together and created a very harmonious, peaceful place. And other people would have looked at them and said, oh, they're such a beautiful couple. They inspire me. I want to be like that. You see, so that's where that's how complex it gets. If we're not paying the needs of the total, then we're actually disregarding others and stripping or stealing the right of others to live a life how they should live so that it supports the needs of the total. That's the price. And that effect alone, by manipulating, cheating, lying, comes back onto the liar, the manipulator, and the cheater. It doesn't go to anyone else other than them. And they're going to pay the price eventually.
That's the tendency which leads to the karma.
That's right. Because now eventually, because it wasn't right in the first place, he wasn't supposed to get her. So what's going to happen is very soon after the honeymoon's over, hey, differences are going to start coming up. And it's not going to be a very nice couple. And they're going to break up anyway. And they're going to suffer a lot when they break up. All because the man in that 1 second couldn't put his ego aside and just ask one simple question. Is this serving the needs of the total? Could there be another man who would do much better and be much better partner or accomplice with this woman than me? But no, the ego is too strong. So he wants profit for itself, and it suffers because of that and causes suffering to the other person also. So there's this huge teaching, this huge importance in thinking about the needs of the total. It is not about you. As a karma yogi, that's your new role. It is not about you anymore. It is about the needs of the total, because you are stepping from the small, limited I to the big whole, which I am not separate from. In fact, it's the whole that supports my presence here on earth. Think about how many things just, are required, like the clothes that you're wearing right now. Some person in China working for $1 an hour, right? And now you go, oh, I feel so handsome in my shirt because of that person. You see, so now we're starting to see the Ishwara, how all of these causes have caused us to be where we are today.
It gets very hard. I'm just repeating the same point, I suppose. Right. I'm just trying to get this to sink in. It gets very hard to assess the needs of the whole. If I want to sell my car and I want X amount of dollars, and the guy that rocks up only wants to pay me this, and I'm going, oh, you know what? I'll do a karma yoga act and I'll sell it to him.
The first one ever.
And then I get back into the house and go, what the heck did I do that for? So you kind of have to live with what's real.
Yes.
Which is, I want as much money as I can get without lying, perhaps. That might be my concession to karma yoga. And he says, no, I'm not paying you. And then you just walk away. Or the deal goes through. But I think it gets with someone with my mind, where I'm just rethinking everything, it gets very technical or difficult to assess what are the needs of the whole.
Yeah,
in every given moment.
Yeah, it is. The simple question is, would I, after having done this action, would I feel good about myself, or would I regret it? Would I feel something is off, or I could have done better?
But if I always want more, and I succeed in that transaction, I would feel good. Like, not only did I ask the price of what, I added some money onto it, and he bought it.
Yeah, okay, as long as you didn't use scrupulous techniques to convince and lie, like how the car, is actually, like change your odometer reading, take off a couple of miles off.
That's right.
So that means you can still get whatever it is that's useful, but as long as it's done honestly. Just ask, would I appreciate this kind of sales technique being done onto another person? Yeah.
That's an interesting, because the difference between a Western mind and an Eastern mind on how those transactions work is, in the West we have a price ticket and everybody expects that's the price, and just everyone holds their ground and has to pay that price. Whereas in the East, people just form a relationship through talking,
I know, right?
And the price keeps shifting, and your needs, and you negotiate, and you actually you're coming together in the minds to achieve a price where you're both satisfied.
Yeah, exactly. You know, this reminds me, this is also how complex and beautiful at the same time this field is. Let's say there's a salesman, and the salesman has applying honest techniques to sell a product to a customer. Now, let's say the salesman does not know about karma yoga. So what's going to happen is this. So the salesman is going to do the best salesman. He's just an honest man, right? Or a woman. And the customer is convinced. So the customer now goes home, who's a man who needs to talk to his wife. The wife's usually a decision maker, right? Because she's part of the man's life. So it's a normal connection to have. Now, depending on the wife's state, she's either going to say yes or no. But we need to go even further back. What changes? Let's say that she had a conversation with a colleague who was sort of lousy, and that colleague caused her to be lousy too. Now, why is the colleague at work lousy? Because the colleague was innocently driving, who got cut by a dangerous maneuver on the road by another driver. Why did that driver do a dangerous maneuver? Because the driver got laid off at work. Why did he got laid off at work? Because that driver did not have a good relationship with a person who went to the boss and said a few things that were not true about that driver. So the boss thought, by the basis of who to lay off, he thought this person should not be here. All of that whole chain of events led to finally the customer saying no to the salesman. The complexity of the field is infinite. That's why we keep saying in Karma Yoga, it stands to reason not to put so much importance or so much expectation on what I get back, because it is totally out of my control. That's why we say Karma Yoga is renouncing the fruits of your actions. The fruits means results. Renouncing the results of your actions to whom? To whom? To Ishwara. Why? Because the field is so complex, it's completely out of our hands to even fathom. All right. Now there's in the Gita there's a very nice short quote that Krishna says to Arjuna. He says, even a little bit of this karma yoga, even a little bit, removes great fear. Why? In the light of what we learned so far, why would karma yoga remove fear?
The anxiety that comes along with being on the outcome.
That's right. So the anxiety that is present in the mind of the individual who doesn't understand karma yoga. Obviously, the individual is always thinking about the most appropriate result based on what? The likes and dislikes. You see where the likes and dislikes, the vasanas, cause problems? They constantly create expectations, and those expectations are totally out of line with the needs of the total, and so those expectations do not get usually fulfilled, and so it causes disappointment. In other words, and what is disappointment? Anxiety? It's fear. Fear of what? Fear of not getting what I want. Stemming from what? The tendencies. That's why we apply karma yoga, offering the results of our actions back to Ishwara, without too much, this is so or feeling sorry for myself that I didn't get what I want, or trying to make a big story out and tell your friends how you didn't get it. No, so what? It's just Ishwara. It's happened. Let it go. Okay, so why? Because the results, just like see the gray. That's the jiva. Once you initiate, you have no idea which way this domino is going to go. No way. It depends on who is going to intercept and how they feel and who they know and all of these complexities there. So now, if Ishwara is the cause of the whole creation, what happens is, without this karma yoga, this is another example, without this karma yoga, is the jiva by default will want to own the situation or take control of their life. That's what we all, as a normal person, we want to have total control of our life. With our kids, with our partners, with our bodies, with our health, with our money, with our house, with our place, with our car. We just want total control. In other words, I should be in control. But in truth, are you in control, knowing now what you know, based on the total causes of everything? No. You only control, as we had that picture, what you do in the moment. But what comes back to you, that is out of your control. So the free will is this. So be clear. Ishwara, what you get back is this. Because that's going to return back to the cause. So let's say this finger pushes the button in a very rough or unconsiderate manner. Pushes someone else, whether it's verbal or whether it's subtle. Then what's going to happen is going to return right back to this actor, jiva, and they're going to have to deal with those results. Yeah.
That's it. It all comes back to that living in the present. This is what you do right now.
Being mindful. There's being mindful, deliberate action, calculated and intentful. That's the basis of karma yoga. Yes.
We're saying that even bad thoughts that are coming into our mind are not my doing. That Ishwara is putting them there, perhaps.
That's right. Because because it's a thought either way.
So it's very hard under those situations to do a good action, I guess. So you might do a bad action because of a bad thought that came into your mind. So it feels like there isn't much free will there. But you're saying there is always free will.
Yeah.
Where is this coming from?
Okay, sure. So no, see, that doesn't belong to Ishwara. It belongs to the jiva, because the jiva accumulates certain those thoughts. First of all, are triggered by likes and dislikes. Because if you have a dislike for certain thing, that's going to entertain the thought about that thing, and we label that thought negative. So that we have to trace the cause of that thought, not address the thought itself, but the cause of that thought. Right. And what's the cause of that thought? Like and dislike. Now, how do we modify the like and dislike? What do we do about this? Karma yoga. Start performing actions whenever you can that serve the needs of the total, thinking about the whole. Little by little, this practice causes me to be more considerate and caring about the things that I do. I know it doesn't seem like there's not much free will.
When you're saying Ishwara is actually controlling everything, even the bad thoughts.
Yes, because the thoughts are created, they're a creation of Ishwara. But it's still up to the jiva, knowing they have free will, what to do with those thoughts. You understand? So the point is, everything is Ishwara. But the jiva has free will. That's all you need to care about. So the question is, how do I wish to use my free will? To keep entertaining these thoughts, or to look at them?
The jiva is also Ishwara, isn't it?
Yes.
But you have to separate the thought from the observer.
Does the free will belong to Ishwara in a way?
The free will is
free will belongs to Ishwara in a way.
Free will belongs to Ishwara is not free. Ishwara is just all knowledge and all power. Ishwara doesn't have free will. Only a jiva has free will. Ishwara is a power that gives jiva its free will. Because if Ishwara had free will, that would imply what? Ishwara is an anthropomorphic god, who's a puppeteer who controls everyone. That is wrong thinking. Ishwara is just a neutral power which allows all this entire field of jivas to do what they do. What they do is free will of the jiva given by Ishwara.
What's the essence of free will then? Is it the self?
No, free will. No, the self is totally has no attributes. Free will is a creation of Ishwara, given to the jiva.
But it's somehow separate. Free will is somehow separate from.
Yeah, because you can observe. As the observer of the thought or the observer of the feeling.
No,
is free will separate from Ishwara?
No. Okay, think about it this way. I will use an analogy of ocean. Okay? The whole ocean is Ishwara. And every wave is not only the Jiva, but you also got every form. Because, see, what is free will? It's just a thought. It's known to you, isn't it? So every thought is what? It's just a wave. Whether it's a person, whether it's a thought, whether it's emotion, whatever it is, it's just a wave. Just imagine for a while, okay? Now, what is both the... Okay, so now what is both the wave... Okay, so what is the wave of? And the entire ocean of?
H2O.
H2O, water. Okay, now, does H2O control the wave? Who controls the wave? The entire ocean. Ishwara. At the same time, Ishwara gives the Jiva wave, the person, free will, what to do with its actions.
Like a gift.
Like a gift.
There's the laws of Dharma, though, that determine whether it comes back as it creates a good Vastness or a bad one, though, isn't it?
Yes, that's inbuilt in every wave Jiva. Lloyd, here's another example. Okay, your question is, what is Ishwara, right? Okay, and free will in Ishwara. Okay, I'll give you an example.
Is free will of Ishwara?
Okay, imagine a vehicle, a car. The car is your body, okay? And the driver is your intellect, because it's the one that's driving, operating what the body does. The petrol is Ishwara. Now, what happens if the intellect crashes into and makes a big accident? Whose fault is that? Is that Ishwara's fault? Is that the petrol's fault?
The driver's fault.
That's the driver's fault. That means Ishwara is that power which gives the ability for the sinner to be a sinner and the saint to be a saint, depending on the driver's intellect, depending on your free will, whether I steer left or I steer right. I still need Ishwara, which is the cause which provides the vehicle to work. But it's still at the same time, I, as the driver, have control whether I go left or right. It is up to you. That's called free will. That means the petrol neither has free will nor... The free will has nothing to do with the petrol. It's just the power that gives you, the Jiva, free will to do whatever you want.
It's the action in the moment.
Contemplate on this, okay? So this comes to a conclusion, little by little, that, as we can see now, knowing that this field is entirely governed by these different causes, that means that whatever we do, whatever comes back to us, is not an accident. It cannot be an accident, because everything is so intricately connected that everything comes back eventually that is a replica that is directly in correlation with the cause that I put out. If you, for example, kick a ball, that's an action, right? You kick a ball straight. What's the effect of that? The ball goes straight. That was your free will. If you kick the ball, let's say, sideways, who did that? You, your intellect. That was your free will. So that means how you kick the ball is the cause determines the effect, right? Is that clear? The action determines the reaction. The action is your free will, how you apply the action. The reaction is out of your control, because that ball could have hit somebody who's angry, just having a hard time, and they come back and punch me. That was out of my control. But why are they angry? Because there were so many different circumstances which led them to being angry, which is totally out of my control. So that means that everything, whatever comes back, is a direct correlation of this constant cause and effect relationship, which is not only based on the individual's actions, but also on the collective actions of the whole. Which means that nothing that's ever happened to you has ever been, or let's just put it this way, anyone who's ever done something hasn't just done that by accident. It's a direct cause of your action in the past. That means if somebody comes and hurts me, and I'm like, I'm talking, someone just comes over and spits at me, it's like, whoa, that's rude. You think that's an accident? No. The field is so intricate that eventually comes back, and I go, what did I do? You can look at that as a messenger of Ishwara simply returning back the effects of my causes in the past. So that means this field is a constant cause-effect relationship. As one, because every cause is actually an effect. An effect demands a cause at the same time. They're not separate. You see the difference? There's actually no difference between them. Cause and effect, they're one. Because as soon as I cause the ball to kick, in that instant moment, there's an effect which way it goes. Okay.
Which is another cause, instant,
Yeah.
spontaneously.
Yeah.
It just keeps going infinitely.
That's right. Okay, so this leads us to how to live this, how to integrate this into our life. We've talked about right attitude and right action in the light of understanding that Ishwara is the great cause. Yes? Now, the other thing that we need to know is that now this is going to come back to you, Lloyd, when you started when you brought the topic of the self at the beginning. How do we use this to discriminate between Satya and Mithya? How does this help us to discriminate? Well, first of all, in order to discriminate between the real and the unreal, you need a pure mind. You need to have that clarity in the mind. And Karma Yoga is going to help with that. Okay? Why? Because Karma Yoga forces the mind inwards. As long as I'm just engaging in karma, in worldly actions, without giving it any thought, guess what? It's just you're just playing with toys. Totally externalized. Your mind's totally outside, right? But if there's an aspect that this is Ishwara that causes me to constantly contemplate whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm engaged with. So the point of Karma Yoga is to turn the mind inwards, which is the heart of self-inquiry. Now, when the mind is turned inwards, one comes to a point and starts to ask, okay, well then who am I? Now the mind is clear. And what do I use in order to determine who I am? So in Vedanta we have two principles, the subject and the object. This is the basis of how to discriminate. The subject is that one who knows about what is presented to the subject. That one who knows. The object is the object which is known to the subject. In other words, the knower, the subject, and the known, the object. Okay, so that means the object is anything other than the subject. Clear? The subject is that one who knows about whatever the subject is witnessing. For example, let's say a tree, okay? The tree is what? Object. You're the what? The subject. Now, did you create the tree? No. The tree is what? Ishwara. It's the five elements.
Ishwara too.
We don't use Ishwara too. Eventually I put it out. James will use that, but I'm sticking to traditional words. So the tree, like you can use the physics model, you can say it's atoms, you can say it's quarks, but we just stick with the Vedic model, we say 5 elements. It doesn't really matter. And what is the tree, if you think about it? What causes the leaf to be a leaf? Intelligence. Right? Like who put the leaf to be in such a combination? What causes the tree to grow in such a manner? What gives it this? What gives the tree a tree? What makes a tree worthy of being called a tree? Who did that? All knowledge, all power. So that means the tree, the object, is 5 elements, and the truth of the 5 elements is what? All knowledge and all power. Because that object which you're witnessing is put together by an intelligence, Ishwara. And the truth of Ishwara is Sat-Chit, existence awareness. So now here's a question. Let's say you see a rock. This is a test. And you say, okay, Andre, it's very easy to see consciousness in a human being because they're vertical, they're alive. But what about a rock? How do you see consciousness in a rock? Because a rock is another object. How do you see consciousness in a rock?
I'm just going to say, it almost becomes, how can't you see consciousness in a rock?
Yeah.
Ishvara is everything. If consciousness is everything, well, the rock is part of everything.
Yes, very good.
So,
yeah, very good. Yeah, that was right on. So the rock is made of what? 5 elements. What's the person who's looking at a rock made of? 5 elements. And the 5 elements, so the person itself is what? A composition of limbs and all of these processes working together. That's intelligence. You didn't put your body together, did you? That means it was put together by an intelligence. Who put that rock together? Who formed the rock through pressure, through millions of years to cause? And if you think about a rock, what is that made out of? Sand and different kind of,
The
particles.
The word there is form.
Form.
It takes form. It's been limited to boundaries, which
Yeah.
is the form, and that's
Yeah, and it has a shape of its own. It has a
That's
certain,
intelligence.
it has a certain weight,
Yeah.
and it's put together. It's hard. It has a certain density to it. So that means what? It's also caused by a certain intelligence. Ishwara, subject. Ishwara, object, and the truth of Ishwara is what? Sat Chit, existence, consciousness. So that means, where do we find a commonality between a person and a rock? In the aspect of existence. The rock exists. The object exists. The subject exists. That means what? Object exists, subject exists. That means both the object and the subject, what do they share in common? Sat Chit, existence awareness. So how do you find commonalities in something that is inert? In the existence aspects. If it exists, it's intelligently put together. By whom? By this great cause, Ishwara, and the truth of Ishwara is consciousness. Just like the truth of the ocean is H2O. They're not separate.
It just doesn't have a causal body or aerospace.
Yeah. Okay, so this now eventually leads one to this object and subject discrimination, the knower and the known. Eventually leads one what we call, there's a term for it, a Jeevan Mukta, but it causes one to identify what is real and what is unreal. That's the essence of discrimination in Vedanta. What is that? What is it in my experience that's always present? And what is it also in my experience that is always changing? Real versus unreal. So that means the real is that awareness in whose presence the changes, the rock, the water, everything, the entire world, my own thoughts, my own emotions, my own body, are constantly known for what they are. So here's a question actually. Is this an object?
Yes.
Okay. Is your emotion an object?
Yes.
How about your thought?
Yes.
How about your doubts?
Yes.
How about when you say I am, is that an object? How about I? When you say I, is that an object?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why? Why is even saying I, why is even that an object?
Because it's known.
Because it's known. Yeah. How do you know you're saying the I? How do you know there's...
referring to the I.
Yeah. So that means this subject-object is what causes one to eventually have clarity around the non-changing principle, which is the Atman, which we call Atman, and everything else that is constantly coming into the experience of the awareness of the individual. Clear? Okay, and this person we call a Jeevan Muktaha. So now the question is, how do you know that if one is a Jeevan Muktaha? You cannot know who's a Jeevan Muktaha. Only the person themselves knows. It cannot be presented in a behavior or what they say or how they speak or how they look like. It's impossible. Only the person themselves will know if they're truly free. Because a Jeevan Muktaha is what? Is free from creation. What does that mean? How do you know you're free from creation, free from experience? The answer...
When you're identifying with the observer or the awareness, you're identifying with the awareness, not the actual perception.
Okay. Okay, that's also an answer. You know when you're completely independent on objects for your happiness. Totally independent of objects for your happiness. That means no object can add anything onto you. That means that nothing in this world can make you more complete than you already are. Because H2O is already everywhere. It's already all pervasive in the entire ocean. That means even if, let's say you lose all your money, your house. Now, of course, let's be real. You know, it's not gonna be pleasant, of course, but it's not a big deal because it's recognized as just another vikara, another changing phenomena. So, what is a Jeevan Mukta? A Jeevan Mukta is one who is completely free from dependence on objects in the world for their joy, for their happiness, for their sense of completion, for their sense of wholeness, including knowledge, including emotions of the body, including how they feel on a daily basis, completely free of that. It doesn't mean they're not responding to that. It just means that it's occurring to the panchakosha, to the three bodies or the five sheets. It's not occurring to the awareness, to the subject who is aware of all of these changes that are happening. So that means even, let's say that, a little bit dramatic, the body starts to age. Because a lot of us, it's easy to be happy when we're young, right? Because the body's working and the mind's sharp. So they're like, well, I'm free, I'm happy. Now let's say that the person breaks their two legs, or let's say their two legs are paralyzed. Okay? Still doesn't affect the joy. Two arms are paralyzed. Still doesn't affect the joy. Now let's say their skin can no longer feel things. Still doesn't affect the joy. Let's say they go blind. Still doesn't affect the joy. Let's say they go deaf and they lose their taste and their smell. Still doesn't affect the joy, the wholeness, the fullness, the completeness. Totally free from creation. And this body is not separate from creation. That means they're free from the body, including everything that the body is experiencing. That's a Jeevan Muktaha. How to quote arrive? It's not an arrival. It's just a recognition that I'm already non-changing. Summary of the whole lesson is we start through karma yoga by seeing Ishwara in everything, by renouncing our results of our actions onto the field, knowing that we don't control the field, and thinking in a manner of how can I serve the whole. That means our minds go inwards. The more it goes inwards, the more we start to contemplate Ishwara, and the more we start to recognize that I am the unchanging, with the help of knowledge. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all be happy. May all be free from illness. May all behold good things. May no one suffer. Peace. The difference between the thinking of a Jeevan Mukta and a normal person is, a normal person will say, if an object makes them happy, they will say, this joy comes from the object. And they will then associate the joy to the partner or to the children or to their business or to their home or their health, their body or their intellect even. That's a tricky one. Some people depend on how much they know for their sense of completion. Jeevan Mukta simply recognizes that this joy is not coming from the object, it's coming from me, it's coming from the subject. And so for that reason, a Jeevan Mukta has no motivation to pursue the object. So they end up having a different life, because now the life is no longer motivated by traveling and having good experiences, because it's a Jeevan Mukta is already complete, they're already whole.
So what does that mean in terms of action with regards to making decisions, whether you become an ascetic and just completely become a vow of poverty almost?
No,
I'm just going to extremes
here,
of course. As opposed to the pleasure of enjoying what's created around us. I mean, the difference between buying a really nice car with all a nice paint job and good interior and feels nice to drive, compared to buying some old banger that's just holding together to be.
There's no difference. Yeah, for a Jeevan Mukta, there's no difference between luxury and poverty. It's just a matter of who can I now serve. It's not about the jiva, because the doer, enjoyer, is the ego, and the person is no longer identified with. And who's the person? The one with the likes and dislikes. Now, those likes and dislikes do not belong to the Jeevan Mukta, and they know that. So that means whatever likes and dislikes they're having, they're not propelled to go into them, to put them into effect.
Between enjoying something and being attached to the enjoying of something. That seems to be where the difference.
What sustains the attachments, likes and dislikes? As long as there's a like, it's in it for me to keep receiving my like in a form of sustaining that object. So once again, the problem is but the likes and dislikes still belong to the person. A Jeevan Mukta is free of the person. So that means, as I said, there's a certain point that even if these vasanas remain and there's an identity shift, then it doesn't matter that these vasanas still continue, because they don't belong to the Jeevan Mukta, they belong to the person. And what do we say? Everything is created by Ishwara. So that means your body is not yours. You didn't create your body. And your body, if you did create your body, it stands to reason you should then absolutely take care of your body and expose it to the best places and the best knowledge. But you didn't create it. So who are you feeding? You're feeding the mind, which is not yours. You're feeding what are you adding onto? You're feeding the body that is not yours. So it doesn't mean that then one shouldn't feed and shouldn't have a good life. We're just saying there's a certain the amount of necessities start to reduce. It's no longer I need this, I need that.
It's not a craving. It's not a craving that you're not going to feel satisfied unless you get that object.
Yeah.
It's more to do with that object is here and now, and I'm enjoying it.
But if it goes, I don't even notice it. Yeah.
So it's got to do with the relationship with the object.
Yeah.
Because it feels to me like a Jeevan Mukta could drive a nice car.
Yeah.
Justify a new car.
Not just justifying the car I drive.
It's his way now.
But to me, it's the relationship. It's the ability to see that it doesn't.
Okay. Now here's the thing. That whole relationship thing, it belongs to the stage that is not a Jeevan Mukta.
Okay.
A Jeevan Mukta sees everything as the same. There is no thought of which car to drive or relationship. It's completely irrelevant. All of these concepts belong to Mattia. They belong to the person. The person cares about the relationship, not the I, consciousness. Consciousness is observing the person having a relationship. So relationship has nothing to do with the Jeevan Mukta. That belongs to Ishwara. That's another Ishwara's creation. See, so the relationship with the world, that belongs to, let's say, why do you want a good relationship with things? To please who? Yourself. Who else? I mean, you're the one that's having the relationship, so you want to please yourself. But that belongs to the person. Yeah. But you're not the person, you see? So the relationship still continues, but there is no, as you say, Martin, there's no attachment how it turns out. So I could have not a good relationship or a good relationship, that doesn't matter to me. That's what we call it. Jiva Mukta is free of these conditions that we impose upon ourselves, which are all what? Limitations. How to live, where to live, how not to live. This is all opposite Ananda, Satchitananda, which does not stand up to the word limitlessness. So Jivan Mukta is that which is Ananda, limitless. That means it doesn't matter what is presented, it's simply seen as an endless, unlimited creation of Ishwara, and one just gets to enjoy that endless creation. But there is no investment to modify the relationship, or how long it stays, or whether it goes away, or how long, or whether I want to sort of improve it. You see, because that belongs to the mind, the intellect, likes and dislikes. It's the likes that want to improve, it's the dislikes that want to get rid of it. But I'm not the likes and dislikes, so there is no motivation to try to improve things.
Basically, the jiva is an object.
Jiva is an object.
But that's an interesting point, because I mean, personally, I've been going through a few things recently, and that lack of motivation is something that did turn up, in terms of why bother? Why bother to go out and try to create money, and I was just sort of going through those sort of mind games of I would rather just sit down, not burn any fossil fuels, eat simply, live simply.
Well, Karma Yoga is living a simple life. At the same time, not using this as an excuse not to transact with the world to serve the whole. You see, this is where we go, Jeevan Mukta doesn't do much, so I'm just not going to do anything here. Exactly. And then that's going to imply I'm enlightened here. It doesn't work like that, because we just said that everything is Ishwara, whose nature is to serve the whole. And why wouldn't you want to serve the whole? Because you're only serving yourself. So a true Jiva Mukta has no self-interest in their actions, because they know they're serving themselves. And there's only the self. Mm-hmm. Right? So this whole idea of trying to sort of intentionally modify things to match what a Jiva Mukta is, that's another like and dislike belonging to the person, revealing they're still identified with the body.
Oh no, look, I'd already surrendered the results of my actions to Ishwara. No problem. Got that far. But I've got expectations about, if this is going to happen, then something's got to go around. It's got to be pushing me in the direction where I'm supposed to be going. And then all of a sudden you're not getting those expectations fulfilled, and so you're thinking, well, maybe I'm on the wrong track.
That's like and dislike.
Yeah, of course.
All we're saying, to simplify, is that Jivan Mukta has no self-interest in how things are to turn out. That's it. They're totally free of objects. Objects involves the entire Ishwara. That's what an object is. Yeah, Ishwara is an object. Why? Because it's known to you. Subject-object.
It's an interesting one. So objectifying Ishwara is obviously something that's happening there.
Yeah, but you see, you can objectify Ishwara. That means even Ishwara is not the I. Because Ishwara belongs to what? Everything underneath the line.
Yeah, actually that's just resolved by
But you cannot discard Ishwara, because in order to say that, even for me to go, I am not Ishwara, I still need Ishwara to say that. Mm-hmm. That's why they're intricately connected. They're entwined. You see, the jumper wall, the wall being the consciousness, and the jumper being Ishwara. You cannot separate them. Wherever there is form, that's exactly where there is Ishwara. Wherever there is Mattia, there is exactly where there is Satya. They're inseparable. That's what we mean. The vision of oneness has no Mattia and Satya. That's just another concept for the mind, to help the mind to understand this. But at the end of the day, you just throw this away, because it's just another dualistic categorization of what is permanent and what is impermanent, what is changing and what is unchanging. is a question.
Yeah, well, I just can't help but say that I felt like Lloyd said that in a different way. Lloyd, was it? Is it?
Yeah,
Lloyd said that in a different way before when he said everything is one.
Yeah.
And you said then that this is a way of understanding it, but actually it is.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, if we just skip right to oneness without having a proper context, then it just gets confusing. So we need a proper, we need to arrive to that answer.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, he was right, but you know, I cannot agree because the time is not right. So I have to wait and then come to the right context.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you discriminate between
Oh, good question. Between the owner, the I sense owner, and the actual awareness of the I sense
That's what I
owner.
meant to say, but I didn't know.
Yeah. Okay, the relationship will be like this. The I. Okay, so the I owner, the ego, which is not I, anatma, is known to you. So if I say to you, please tell me, say to yourself now, I am.
Give more than you get. That's in the book.
Okay, so now we're going back to that sukshma,
But it does
what we call,
seem that,
or sakshi.
You are.
See, when you said I am, there was a background that was aware of that I am.
Through the
Are you aware of that background?
and through the free choice.
Yeah, it's that we call existence. Because you said I am, but you were aware of saying I am.
The intellect, which is lower.
So the I am belongs to the ego.
I think I've got the answer.
Because the ego just made that claim, I am. It owned that experience of saying I am. But the witness, called sakshi, is the awareness prior to that experience of saying I am. That's why you know you said I am. So that means if you say here, okay, so see that's Mattia, and that's Satya, that's Brahman. Okay. So see this line that separates Satya and Mattia. So when you said I am, that belongs here. I am, or I know that I said I am. You see that? But now this, I know that I am, that you cannot grasp, because that belongs to consciousness. You cannot grasp yourself because you already are the self. So that means no matter what you say, whatever you know about, I know that I am, I know that I exist, I know that I'm aware, I am aware, I. If you just even say I, there is that silent presence called, we call that here sakshi, which is the witness, knower, or the observer, one that lends its shine to whatever is here in these brackets. You know, it's the illuminator of your I am.
I thought that was Atman. No?
Atman is Brahman.
Okay. You said that Atman was associated with matter.
Yes. Atman is when Brahman is operating through an individual. We give them that name, Atman. So actually, Atman is Brahman. But so what is Atman? Atman is Brahman conditioned by the 5 sheets.
Yeah.
Atman is Brahman conditioned by the 3 bodies. So it's still original consciousness, but it's now conditioned by your mind, by your intellect.
So there's no Atman in a rock.
Yeah, so that's why we say Atman is actually the one that knows that I am Atman. You see? So we call this, which you cannot grasp, this consciousness, the non-participating, non-interfering, unchanging, non-verbalized principle of knowledge that illumines every thought, every experience. You cannot verbalize it, it does not interfere, and it does not participate. Because if it was participating, then you wouldn't be able to make out what you're saying. That means it has to stand apart, completely witnessing, not interfering, not participating with anything that happens.
Well, that's the subject.
Yeah, we can call that the subject, yeah.
That's the unchanging.
The unchanging.
You can't, there's no form, there's no limit to it.
So subject, object.
You can't even conceive it.
You can't even conceive it, because you cannot conceive what you already are. That's why you cannot grasp it. You can just know it that, okay, well, I cannot grasp it, so I can
as
only
soon
just
as you've tried to
accept
conceive it, you've actually gone one step further back.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to conceive or conceptualize it, you start to put it into a form, and as soon as it started to take...
Which is objectifying it.
Yeah. And the fact that you've got to that point means you're coming at it from a
from another. It's always one step prior
Yeah.
to your action of trying to grasp it.
Yeah, it's like I liken that to when when you get two mirrors either side of you, and you look in the mirror, you see yourself in that mirror, and then you go back and you see that, and it just keeps going back and back and back forever.
Yeah.
Well, each time you'll focus on one actual image, and then your attention sees the other one back in the other mirror, and you're actually going back and back.
You cannot grasp it.
You can't. It just goes on.
Yeah. So all we're trying to do in this entire course is to re-identify the I with this ungraspable I know that, which is which is unchanging, non-interfering, non-participating, and non-verbalized. So even if you say I,
and it's the present. It's the very present.
Even if you say that's right. Even if you say I, you just verbalize it. But this is the non-verbalized. It's the I that knows about the I saying the I. You see? So if you say I am, that I am belongs here. But you said the I am, don't you? That knower is here. I know that I know that I am.
It's like you've got the thinker, so you've got the thought, then you've got the thinker, and then you've got the observer of the thinker. But as soon as you actually say the word observer, or try and visualize observer, you've missed it, and you've got to go back again.
So the whole point is just to re-identify. So this is 100% consistently clear, and it's present all the time. It's impossible not to miss.
It is the present.
Yeah, it is the present. So I am that. So for example, Nisargadatta, when he writes the book I Am That, that means I am that.
Now.
Yeah, and I never was
and
anything.
now's gone.
I never was anything other than that. Yeah.
Personal self is consciousness. Is that what he's saying?
What's that one?
The personal I is consciousness. Is that what he's saying?
The personal I is the... What do you mean by the personal? The ego?
Three bodies and 5 sheets.
Well, that's the experience.
I never understood what he meant. I am that.
The personal I is what the consciousness.
Individual.
Yes, it's okay. The personal I is known by consciousness.
I think when he says I am that, do you mean what's the that? The that is that, the awareness. So when Nisargadatta says I am that, he's talking about the awareness.
Yeah, his point. Yeah, and it's only said by the self-realized person. Yeah. So if an ignorant person says that, then they're referring to Mattia because they don't know what that is.
They're trying to objectify that.
They're trying to objectify it. Yeah. Just like if we say Aham Brahmasmi, which is the fourth Mahavakya, that's a statement of the self-realized person. They're saying I am. This I, called reflected consciousness, Atman, is Brahman. Because you see, you can never be... See, you already are Brahman, but what they're trying to say to you is that as long as there's matter, right? The matter is always... The consciousness is seemingly conditioned by the matter. So in other words, the wall is seemingly conditioned by the jumper, but it's actually not conditioned because the wall is independent of the jumper. So what we say is the person is seemingly conditioned by their mind. Why do we say the word seemingly? Because actually they're not conditioned.
Yeah.
The original light is never conditioned. But it seems to be conditioned when it's shining onto the mind.